The Sharpshooters, Mark Shanowski and David Schuster, talk basketball.
If you had to have a best-case scenario for an offensive-minded philosophy, what would it be for the Bulls?
I would like to see them go to more of a motion offense kind of thing. Keep guys moving throughout the 24-second shot clock. All too often with a lot of NBA teams, not just the Bulls, they come down court, they run high screen and roll. They hope that they're going to get a switch and the guard can get into the paint, force a double team, and kick out to a three-point shooter. It almost becomes, it'll lull you to sleep because it's the same thing every time. High screen and roll, switch, kick out to the three-point line. I would like to see Lauri Markkanen get involved in screens off the ball where he can come and catch it, not only to catch and shoot, but also catch the ball in motion where he's coming off a screen. At 7'1", he's a pretty good ball handler. He can go right to the rim and maybe get more free throws this year. I think Lowry became very frustrated last season because the analytics, which Jim Boylan was very heavily influenced by, were saying that you need three-point shots, and he wanted to shoot 35 a game. And they almost became robotic in the way they were running their half court. I think that Billy Donovan will bring more motion. He's not going to tell people you can't shoot a 15-foot jumper, because I know Zach LaVine was kind of chafing at that. He felt like a very important part of his game was being taken away by the coaching staff. Well, now I think they'll have the green light to shoot those 15-footers, which I think will also open up more possibilities for Wendell Carter Jr., who, as we've talked about many times, was totally lost in this offense.
Yeah, it's insane. I've thought this forever and ever. To take away the mid-range game of any player who's a basketball player is just insanity to me. If you can make a two-point shot from 15 or 18 feet, but your three-point percentage is pretty low, why are you going to shoot the three-point shot and probably miss the rebound on top of it when you have a better chance of, connecting from two? It's never made any sense to me.
Yeah, everybody was trying to follow the strategy that the Houston Rockets brought in. And,
have they won anything?
Yeah, they've been very successful during the regular season, but they haven't done much in the playoffs. It's just a copycat kind of league, and the Golden State Warriors were very successful shooting a three ball, but when you look at Golden State, they were much more than what the Houston Rockets were. Their offense had a lot more subtleties to it. They also were a very good defensive team, which the Houston Rockets weren't. So that was one of the reasons, besides the fact they had Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, that they were winning championships. But their offense was much more than just kick it out to the three-point line. There was a lot more going on there.
Well, if you're going to follow the leader right now is the LA Lakers. You need to get two of the best three players in the world.
That always helps, yeah.
It does.
Sharpshooters with Mark Shanowski and David Schuster, only on the Bears Barroom Radio Network.
You're listening to the Barroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Goon Podcast with your hosts, Joe Mandel, the Goon, and John Santucci, the Tooch. We're bringing you the fantasy football knowledge that you need every single week.
Derrick Henry still going. Stays in bounds. He might go. 99 yards for the touchdown. Unbelievable.
Flushed out again all the way back. Turning the corner. Fires downfield. Caught. Touchdown. Only Mahomes turns what might have been a 15-yard sack into a 27-yard touchdown.
Saquon Barkley across midfield, down the sideline, stayed in bounds, and Barkley takes it all the way. 68 yards for his first NFL touchdown. McCaffrey right up the middle, and he is gone for the touchdown. 58 yards. Pass is to Thomas. He's gone. Touchdown Saints.
Okay, it's time for the easiest part of any coach's job, the cut. Now, while I wasn't able to cut everyone I wanted to, I have cut a lot of you. Steven, I like your hustle. That's why it was so hard to cut you. Congratulations, the rest of you made the team. Except you and you.
God bless fantasy football. There are many things a man can do with his time. And this, better than those things.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Goon Show. I'm your host, Joe Mandel, the Goon. This handsome guy over here is John Santucci, the Tooch. And we're here to talk fantasy. We're here to talk and get you ready for Week 10. And we're going to walk you through waivers. Tooch, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's sad that the season is, 9-10 weeks, more than half over, Joe. Fantasy football and, a long wait, long off season until we get to draft again and, start all those great leagues. And as usual, the top story is injuries, Joe. COVID and injuries.
COVID and injuries, Tooch. It's like the same old song and dance every single week, isn't it?
Yeah, we should have had that song going in the background. Same old song, Aerosmith.
Yeah, well, maybe next week. Instead, we'll go. Instead, we'll go with this.
Coronavirus. Man, I'll tell you, if ever, this is a great argument for zero running back and handcuffs. With receivers being the stars of the show. Guys like Richie James can come in and be the high scorer. And Christian McCaffrey could go down and his backup, be a hot pickup again.
Yeah, well, that's something we'll get to as well. But it was a crazy weekend. There was a lot of big scoring games. There was a lot of underscoring games. There's a lot of studs. There's a lot of duds. And there were some people that just came out of obscurity, Tooch.
Yeah, a lot of lesser known names put up big points. There was overall scoring was up this week. It was I was going to say like the top 40 or 50 players hit double digits as wide receivers. 40 or 50 top wide receivers hit double digits. So it was up week for scoring. The quarterbacks were up too. I think the top 15 or so quarterbacks got you around 20 points. At least the top 12.
And some of those guys, Tooch, and some of those guys scoring more points than Lamar Jackson, Tooch.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson down. That was my sit of the week, Joe. I told you.
We did well with our sit of the week.
And my quarterback start was Drew Lock. And he put up over 30 points. So, yeah, Ron Roop now in the chat room. He's absolutely right. Look at the rookie quarterbacks. One rookie making his first start ever in the NFL throws for 300 yards.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Then you got guys like Justin Herbert. You got Tua. Of course, you got Joe Burrow.
Young quarterbacks too.
They can really sling it.
Yeah. Yep. Tua looking better. This week. A big improvement over last week, and moving around in and out of the pocket for Tua and making throws on the run, hitting guys. And I think Drew Lock kind of the same, a big improvement there. Of course, Lock was playing the Falcons defense, so that helps. But
always helps.
Yeah, I mean, he was running around, scored a touchdown on the ground, ran around, threw for 3 touchdowns. And then Jake Luton, the rookie quarterback on the Jaguars, who took Gardner Minshew's place, comes in, throws for 300 passes. His first pass of the day was a 73-yard touchdown to DJ Chark.
I'd say that probably works pretty good, but he doesn't have a stash or a mullet, Tooch.
No.
He doesn't have a magic beard. Maybe that's why he's doing okay.
Maybe that's the secret. I tend to disagree, but
yeah, I was gonna say you're looking a little salt and peppery. I like it.
It's almost winter. Yep.
Would you say winter is coming?
Yeah, winter is coming, Joe. I have the beard is growing in for winter.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Go. It's
getting ready for winter.
That's right.
Starting to get cold. 30s today here.
Yeah, starting to get cold. Cold weather is a coming, and that means there'll be more injuries too. But let's start with quarterback injuries too. There was a lot of them. Matthew Stafford took a really hard hit to the head. He's in concussion protocol, questionable. Yep. He didn't know where he was. Drew Brees has got that shoulder injury, but he played and played really well. They destroyed the Buccaneers. Should be playing, I would imagine.
Man.
Cam Newton and the Patriots, they look lost for most of that game, but offensively, they had a little groove going. Cam's got a neck injury. He's questionable.
And 2 touchdowns on the ground for Cam. And found a go-to receiver while Julian Edelman is out.
Yes, we will dive into him a little bit later, but if anyone needs to know, we're talking about Jacoby Myers.
Right, 10 targets.
Yeah, he caught over 10 balls. I mean, he had a massive day.
Did he? Yeah.
170-something yards.
Sorry, 14 targets, 12 catches.
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable in PPR. Kid just kept getting open. I know they're playing the Jets, but still, you gotta take that into account. Sam Darnold dealing with that shoulder injury. He's questionable. The Jets are tanking for Trevor, so I don't know if you're going to see Sam Darnold again. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. He's going to be trade bait for somebody. Jimmy Garoppolo dealing with that ankle injury. He's expected to be gone at least 3 weeks until week 14. Minshew, as Tooch was just talking about, dealing with that thumb injury. Expected back next week, Tooch.
Yeah, will he regain his former starting position or regain his magic? I don't know. I if Jake Luton shows pretty good in week 10, I don't know if Gardner Minshew is going to get his spot back.
I would agree with you. The kid looked good, so we'll see what happens there. Andy Dalton, this was a surprise, Tooch, popping up on the COVID list after that concussion. He's questionable for this week.
The Cowboys, just bad luck. And, the inspired performance against the Steelers came up short.
Yes, he did come up short, but what are you going to do? This is a new week. Another guy dealing with COVID, Tooch, Baker Mayfield. He's questionable for this week. And a precautionary questionable on the COVID list, Big Ben Roethlisberger, who apparently was around some people with COVID. He's on the list, but technically does not have it, barring a negative test, but we'll see what happens.
Right.
And last but not least, there was a gruesome injury to Kyle Allen, complete ankle dislocation. It was absolutely disgusting. He's out.
Same injury Dak Prescott had.
It was very similar, and his was more aerobic.
Wasn't as gross, huh?
I think it was more gross, but take it as you will. But he's obviously out for this week, and it looks like for the rest of the season. They haven't ruled him out officially, but it wasn't good. He's gone for the season. We got a question in the chat from Steve Mead.
Speaking of Matt Stafford.
Do you think they'll move on from him next season? That's a good question, Steve. I haven't really given it much thought. I personally don't think so, just because, they've got some core around him. They're growing some chemistry. Unless all of a sudden you lose all the rest of your games, which I don't think they're going to do. What are you going to do in the draft? You're not going to draft someone in the middle of the pack unless they make some trades, but I don't think so. Tooch, what do you think?
Well, I mean, Matt Stafford, I really can't imagine him playing anywhere else, although I could see him going somewhere else. But he's the all-time passing leader of the Lions. It'd be surprising to me if he were let go from the Lions. But if they lose enough games, they'll be in position to maybe get one. It's a pretty good draft for quarterbacks this year. I think if they draft a quarterback and it's not one of the top 2 or 3, then I could see Matt Stafford sticking around maybe, a season for a young guy or a season or 2 under Matt Stafford for the young guy.
I don't know. But Joe O'Donnell wants to know, Singletary from the Bills, time to let him go, time to dump him. I don't know if I would go that far yet. I mean, there's a lot of football left, and it's going to be a playoff team. They're going to have some big lead.
Tell Joe to stick around because there's some surprise waiver wires that the old Tooch will give you. So you can think about it. I mean, running backs are scarce, but there's some people returning this week, Joe. I think Tooch is going to give you some surprise waiver pickups.
Yeah, definitely stick around. Singletary, he's borderline, but there's probably some better guys out there. Depends who's on your waivers, and we'll talk waivers in just a little bit.
Zach Moss is getting the goal line,
Yeah.
So that's his third touchdown in 2 weeks, on the goal line. So is he droppable?
I love this.
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I would say hold him for a little bit longer.
Yeah, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt for a little bit longer, but not much.
But check back after waivers, after the waivers section.
Yeah. And then Steve with a funny comment. Should Baker Mayfield's book group get tested for COVID? God, I hate those commercials.
That is great. Good joke.
Well done, Steve. I like it.
Well done.
And before we get into other injuries at running back, Michigan legend Adam Thielen or Cooper Kupp this week?
Oh man, I love Cooper. I love the Rams have a great matchup this week against the Seahawks. So
yeah, you got to play Cooper Kupp.
I'm going Cooper all the way in this one. I'd be
Adam
starting
Thielen
Robert
going
Woods
against
and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, Adam
going
Thielen
against
going
the
against
Bears.
the Bears, who have been really good at defense, but really horrible on offense. So,
well, here's the thing with the Bears. Yeah, yes, they've been great against opposing wide receivers and quarterbacks, whatnot. Opposing wide receivers more, but their offense isn't scoring any points. So, I mean, a defense that's out there for more than half of the game is going to give up points eventually. So, I mean, I still love the Rams have the best matchup. Rams wide receivers have the best matchup of the week.
Well, you saw it last week. The Seahawks couldn't stop anybody.
Yeah, they just Josh Allen threw for 415 yards. So
yeah, he's good. The Seahawks defense is bad.
I love Jared Goff this week too. I think Jared Goff got a great chance to throw for 400 yards. So you want to get your wide receivers into this game.
Good streaming, and we'll get to that in a little bit later in the fantasy goal games too.
Yep.
But let's talk running back injuries. Why don't you start us off with some running backs? There's a lot of them.
Right. We need some sad music in the background here, Joe, for fantasy owners.
I'll just do the
the number one overall pick this season for most drafts. Should have been Dalvin Cook, but before the season we were thinking Dalvin Cook, is the injury prone guy. It turns out it's Christian McCaffrey this year as attrition has caught up with the young superstar. He comes in. Every game he's played in this year, he's had 25, 30 points, which he did again this weekend.
He really has.
He did it again this weekend, but he injured his shoulder. He's questionable for week 10. So, I mean, I hope you didn't dump Mike Davis because, as I said in the open of this show, this is the year of the handcuff. I've got Dalvin Cook and James Conner on one team that's doing pretty well. And I have both backups, both handcuffs sitting on the bench. I got no chance without them,
Yeah. It's tough this year, man. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Zeke Elliott dealing with that hamstring. He played on Sunday, but they have a bye week, of course. This is a great part of the show to remind people the buys this week, Tooch. The Jets are on bye, and the Kansas City Chiefs, Fantasy Dynamite, are on bye.
Man.
The Cowboys are on a bye, and then last but not least, the Falcons are on a bye. So lots of big fantasy names on a bye this week, Tooch.
Right, and I gotta say, and this is probably true for the Falcons too. I know too these are two very high scoring teams, the Chiefs and the Falcons. But if you have players on a bye, it kind of pays to pick up a Chief player. I mean, the Demarcus Robinson, who I think I talked about last week. He's had a touchdown past 2 weeks. So, I mean, he may not have gotten you huge numbers, but if you slipped him into your flex on a bye, you had Tyler Boyd out or someone, last week, or T. Higgins, I need somebody, just keep in mind, pick up a Chief or a Falcon, I mean, Falcons too, Olamide Zacchaeus scored
blowing
again.
up.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the guy that helps nobody in fantasy.
you have to weigh, when you're looking out there, the matchup and the team's offensive output. And the Chiefs are the best scoring team in the NFL.
Absolutely, brother. And let's keep cracking through these injuries.
Yeah. Zeke Elliott hamstring, right?
Yep. David Johnson in concussion protocol, Tooch.
Right.
Questionable. He may not play this week. So keep your eyes on Duke Johnson. We'll talk a little bit about that later.
And the waivers. His backup did pretty good.
Yes, he did.
We got news on Miles. We got 2 miles here, Joe. 2 miles to go.
That's right. That's Myles Gaskin dealing with a knee injury, expected back week 12. But the other Myles Sanders, he might come back. He's got that knee injury, but he might be back this week, Tooch.
That's right. Yep, he's questionable for week 10, but it's looking like he's going to come back. So, and they're playing. The Eagles are playing the Giants this week, and Carson Wentz had a huge game against the Giants last time. The 357 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, Carson Wentz, someone to think about in the waivers. We'll talk about him. Then
absolutely, and David Montgomery too. She's got a concussion. Everybody's hurt on the Bears or COVID. Justin Jackson, knee injury, left right after the first play, and he cost me a fantasy victory on one of my leagues. He left right away, so that kills you. He's questionable for week 10. Darrell Henderson, he's got a thigh injury. He's questionable. Matt Breida, he didn't play this last week. He's got a hamstring. He's questionable. Sony Michel, Tooch, we talked about it last week on the show. That quad injury, he's expected to return off of IR this week. That could be an interesting play.
Yeah, I mean, that would fit into the script for Bill Belichick when he's got 4 guys, 5 guys he likes to throw in there. And just when you think you've got to figure out, we think we've got Damian Harris now. Harris rushed for 100 yards. And here you go. Rex Burkhead is the guy this week because he hates fantasy football, Joe.
He hates it. We were texting last night. I'm like, now tonight it's Rex Burkhead. Okay, great.
Right now you've got Kenyon Drake. He could come back. He's questionable for week 10. Chase Edmonds didn't do too bad this past week in his place. But here we go, Joe. The Seahawks backfield. You've got 3 guys looking to make a return here. You got Chris Carson. He's questionable. He's got a foot injury. Carlos Hyde, his hamstring. He's questionable for week 10. And Rashad Penny. Remember him, Joe?
That's a name I haven't heard since
in a long time.
That's what I was trying to do. Yeah.
The Sand People will be back in greater numbers. Rashad Penny. He had a knee injury. He's on the PUP list. He is expected to return this week. So if you
too many dudes.
And DJ Dallas and Travis Homer, you've got 5 guys there. It's a mess. I mean, looking at it though, it's like Carson and Hyde are just. I mean, hamstring injury for Hyde, that's tough. And then Carson, he plays so hard. A very physical runner. I mean, Rashad Penny might not be a bad stash. DJ Dallas, a rookie, who's been playing well, but I mean, I know they like Rashad Penny as well.
During his rookie year, I thought Penny was going to be the guy, and I stashed him like the whole season, and he did nothing. So he burned me. So I have a empty place in my heart for Rashad Penny,
like a bad penny. Turn up like a bad penny.
That's right. It's like one of those pennies that you find it's like stuck to the floor. You can't pick it up. Let's keep going. Mark Ingram, ankle injury, questionable. Devontae Freeman also with an ankle. He's questionable for this week. Troymaine Pope in concussion protocol, questionable for this week.
Right.
Joe Mixon, another ankle injury.
And I forgot Justin Jackson. He got hurt too, I think. He wasn't listed on the injury report today, though. So did he leave injured as well, Joe? I think someone hit him in the knee.
Jefferson?
Justin Jackson on the Chargers.
Yeah, he did. Yep, he did.
So he wasn't. The Chargers did not list him on the injury report today when I was looking.
Yeah, he must be
But
okay.
I believe he'll. Yeah, I checked the status throughout the week though. They had Kalen Balaj, his backup, came in and finished. With a good point to finish the number 4 overall running back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, James Conner or Joe Mixon this week, Joe. Let's see.
Yes, they do play each other. So,
what's his name is against the Bengals? Connor. They didn't even.
They're playing each other.
Right. The Bengals are. Let's see. The better matchup. The Bengals are 25th against the run. The Steelers are pretty damn good against the run. They're number 6. So I'm going to take Connor in this one.
Yeah, I like Connor. He's got the better matchup. And he's been more involved. And especially if Big Ben is out for this game because he's got the COVID list. I don't know what's going to happen. But if Ben's out, it's a James Conner game for sure.
Plus, Mixon's coming off that foot injury. I mean, twist it, someone steps on it. Mixon, I think, is questionable. Yep. What does it say? Joe Mixon.
How about
He's got the ankle. So Bernard from the Bengals. If it's PPR, Bernard catches a lot of balls.
Mm-hmm. So he could be a decent play.
That Steelers defense is tough, though. But so you're really looking at Connor versus. I'm still going to stay with Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Steve calling out Le'Veon Bell for being quiet. Do you think he shows up later in the season? I do think he will show up.
I do too. There's nothing like veteran. Although this is another. All 3 of the running backs, and I'm going to include Darrell Williams on the Chiefs. They had equal touches. I think Edwards-Helaire had 19. The other 2 guys had 18 touches. So the goal line most of the goal line touches went to Darrell Williams, which this Andy Reid is channeling his inner Belichick, Joe. So, but Edwards-Helaire is the main guy. They're running him in between the 20s, just eating up yardage. So I would rank them as Edwards-Helaire, Bell, and then Darrell Williams. So I give Bell. I would hold on to Bell on my bench, just stash him. You never know what's going to happen. What? Yeah. Should anything happen to Edwards-Helaire or Darrell Williams, Bell, his snap percentage is just going to go up.
Oh, 100%. So I agree. And Steve calling out in the chat that the Seahawks re-signed Alex Collins. He had a good season with the Ravens.
A good season with the Bills too.
Mm-hmm. And they got cut for drug use, car crash. Could be a sneaky play. Yeah, their backfield is a mess. So aside from Chris Carson, I'm not really touching this backfield until I get a better idea.
Right. It's tough with the injuries. Carson, Hyde, and now you got Rashad Penny, like we said, coming back. It's Carson's still the alpha, and he's he's questionable for this week. That kid's going to be trying to do everything he can to get back into this game. So, I don't know. They're playing the Rams. Rams are a great defense. Running back, the Rams are only allowing 14.5 fantasy points per game to the running backs. So something to keep in mind this week.
Yes, sir.
The Seahawks, though, pretty good run defense, too. They're only allowing 15.5 points to the running back per game.
Yeah, we got to crank through some injuries, so let's keep on going. Joe Mixon, we talked about dealing with that ankle. Raheem Mostert expected to return this week, Tooch, with that ankle injury. Big shot in the arm for the 49ers. Jeff Wilson dealing with an ankle injury. He'll be back in a couple weeks, probably around week 12.
Yep.
Tevin Coleman, also banged up, but questionable. Might play this week, too.
Yep, and then, Jerick McKinnon was the star this past week. So, the 49ers are running back by committee as well. Seahawks, 49ers, Ravens, Patriots, Rams. Those are the teams. They just like to run guys in there. There aren't a lot of teams that use, a single running back. You're looking at James Robinson, who, if you were a waiver wire prognosticator magician, you are well rewarded with that kid. He's the top rookie running back, undrafted free agent rookie, and he is probably going to be the top running back scorer, fantasy running back this season.
He's going to get paid in a couple of years, I would imagine. But let's run through the rest of running backs and get through wide receivers quickly.
Here we go.
So many injuries. Austin Eckler expected to return next week from the hamstring injury. Nick Chubb, MCL sprain, expected to be back potentially this week. He could be activated, so that would be great for them.
Man.
And then Bryce Love with a knee injury expected to come back this week as well, Tooch.
Right, for the Washington football team. See, I didn't say Redskins there, Joe.
That's right.
But Bryce Love was a guy that they were really high on, before the season. The training camp started, got injured again. So, I mean, I know they love Antonio Gibson there, and the highest, I think the number 2 scoring running back this week was J.D. McKissick. So,
yeah,
a guy that I've been saying to pick up for the longest time,
He is definitely he could be a flex start every week as far as
man. I'm concerned. I tell you, I think he had 10 targets this week. So
can't go wrong with that.
He was a number 3 overall running back. So he had 10 targets, 10 catches, 10 targets, 82 yards receiving out of the backfield. That's what Alex Smith does, Joe.
And Alex Smith will be around for a while, so I imagine you stick with McKissick. So you got to go good there.
Yeah. Yep.
But we're gonna rifle through wide receivers here. Keep sending us your questions in the chat. We're gonna answer them directly following the injuries. We're gonna do a quick commercial, and we're gonna talk about waiver claims. It's big stuff. Get the waiver claims in for tomorrow. Then fantasy gold and start and sit. So that's coming up real soon. Tooch, Kenny Galladay still got that hip injury, questionable this week. Michael Thomas back to full action. He looked good on Sunday night.
Right.
Calvin Ridley's got that foot injury. He's questionable for this weekend. Julian Edelman had that knee surgery procedure. I guess it's not a full surgery, but he's expected to come back, later next week. We'll see what happens there. Golden Tate is an interesting one, Tooch, because he talked some shit to the media about how he wants them to throw him the ball, and the Giants didn't like that, so they told him to go home. And he was out last week because of a coach's decision. So I don't know what to think out of Golden Tate. I mean, maybe they're going to release him. I'm sure a team would scoop him up in 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't trade him by the deadline. With Sterling Shepard back, and then you have Darius Slayton and C.J. Board. They don't need Golden Tate. They could have gotten maybe a 6th or 7th round pick for him, so going somewhere where, a wide receiver needy team, that's trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Patriots could have used him. Bill Belichick loves veterans. Of course they probably won't make the playoffs, but
sure.
There's some teams out there that could use a steady veteran.
Well, we'll see if he gets released or
49ers,
not.
the 49ers with Deebo Samuel, but
what about Green Bay?
Green Bay, yeah, exactly. Green Bay would have been a great spot.
They would kill for him, but Deebo Samuel got that hamstring questionable. Kendrick Bourne, the guy who we thought was going to have a big game last week, got COVID. He's questionable for this week. T.Y. Hilton with a groin injury. T.Y. is questionable. Laviska Shenault, he's also got a hamstring. He's questionable for this week. Everyone's got a hamstring, a foot, or a calf. Preston Williams got a foot injury. He left the game.
Yeah. Had a pretty big game, though, Joe, with a touchdown, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Finishes the number 24 overall receiver with 16 fantasy points, which isn't bad if you needed a wide receiver and you started Preston Williams, who was on our waiver list last week.
For a guy that went out early, he still had a really big game.
Yeah.
Alshon Jeffries, a calf injury. Him and Deshaun Jackson both questionable.
Deshaun Jackson is probably not back until week 15. He's a little more banged up than Jeffrey, but Jeffrey you could see this week.
Maybe he does the old disappearing act and magically he's back. We'll see what happens. Sammy Watkins dealing with that hamstring injury. He's questionable, Tooch.
Right, they're on the
heading
bye.
into next week. Obviously, they're on the bye. Adam Humphries, concussion protocol, questionable. N'Keal Harry's still in concussion protocol as well for the Patriots. They're doing okay without him. Jacoby Myers doing great, but Harry's questionable for this week. Alan Lazard, who had that abdomen surgery about 4 or 5 weeks ago, he's expected to return this week, a big shot in the arm for the Packers. He's a surprisingly big part of that offense, even though you wouldn't think he is. He is. And then Paris Campbell, the promising young player from the Colts, expected to return from a knee injury this week, Tooch.
Right, and the other rookie, the other young player, the rookie, Michael Pittman Jr., he scored this past week for the Colts. So he had 7 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown there. Actually, he did not score. I thought he was one of the players that didn't score. But.
And Tooch, why don't you take us through the tight end injuries, and then we're going to take a quick commercial break before we talk waivers.
All right. Noah Fant had an ankle. He's questionable for Week 10. Had a pretty good game. Jack Doyle, concussion, questionable for Week 10. His counterpart, Mo Alley Cox on the Colts, knee, questionable Week 10. George Kittle on IR, expected to return Week 16. He wants to come back sooner. We'll just give you Week 16 as the target right now. Greg Olsen, Seahawks tight end. He's got a foot injury. He's questionable Week 10. Zach Ertz, he's got an ankle. Not expected back this week. Is expected return is Week 11. And then Austin Hooper could be a sneaky pickup this week in waivers. Appendectomy. He's questionable for Week 10.
I love it, Tooch. I love it. Maybe he could be a sneaky tight end play for sure.
Well, yeah, with Tooch, Odell's out, so Baker needs targets.
Anything can happen down there in Cleveland. So David Njoku as well is a sneaky play. And Tooch, what do you say? You give me the hot sauce.
On the debut episode of Stacey King's Give Me the Hot Sauce with Mark Shanowski.
Let me just say this, man. I love dogs. I love dogs, man. You get an emotional Stacey right now,
I know.
ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about the hot sauce.
No popcorn. You got to bring the tissues,
listen,
right?
Just bring the tissues right now. I don't know if you've seen A Dog's Life, The Dog's Purpose with my man Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. I didn't even know there was a 2. I watched the first one's A Dog's Life, I think, the first one. And
you didn't cry hard enough at that one, so you had to go for round 2.
But see, the dog dies all the time, and he comes back as a different dog. That's hard enough as
Spoilers.
Listen, if you ain't seen it, it's not my fault. That movie's been out there for at least 10, 12 years.
Forever, yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, that's your own fault. So if I broke it and spoiled it for you, I'm sorry, people. It's just the way it is, okay? Blame Shanowski, because he's the one who brought this topic up, not me, okay? So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Mark Shanowski. I'm going back to my emotional moment.
For the rest of the story, make sure you listen to Stacey King's Give Me the Hot Sauce with Mark Shanowski, only on the Bears Barroom Radio Network.
Oh, man. Stacey King and Mark Shanowski. Give me the hot sauce.
Love Stacey.
Stacey just, man, the voice. I think of the playoff runs in the late mid to mid 2000s for the Bulls. I hear his voice with Kyle. What the heck is his name? Give me the hot sauce. I'm trying to think of. I can't even think of the player's last name. Wow, I should be ashamed of myself. It'll come back to me. It's Kyle Korver. Thank you very much. Yeah, so he had unleashed that bottle of the hot sauce. But, man, tune in. There's so many great shows on the network. We led off the show with a commercial for Sharpshooters, the Mark Shanowski, obviously, and David Schuster, 2 of the best in the business. And, of course, Stacey, give me the hot sauce. You got, Stacey King and Mark Shanowski again. I mean, can't beat that. Great stuff on the network. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Radio Network, the Bears Barroom. You can go to bearsbarroom.com. Give us a subscription. You can go to bearsbarroom.com. You can buy yourself a T-shirt for the Barroom Network. You can buy a Fantasy Football Goon shirt. You can support all of us in any way you can. We just appreciate you guys. How about it, Tooch?
Oh man, we're getting ready for basketball season with the Bulls and their new coach Billy Donovan. Boy, it's going to be exciting.
Yes, sir. And speaking of exciting, it's time to talk about waivers. It's Siri on my phone was just activated because I said exciting, and she thought I said Siri. But talking waivers, we got to talk about quarterback, Tooch, and Jared Goff is available in a lot of leagues. He's got a fantastic matchup against the Seahawks. I would imagine he's got to be the top ad on waivers if you need a quarterback.
I think so too. I don't know how much. I'm sure he's got to be sitting on someone's bench. Smart fantasy managers.
Maybe not.
If he's not, you better. I think it's a great matchup. I mean, like I said, Josh Allen just threw for 400 yards against the Seahawks. So I love Jared Goff's matchup this week. Then, of course, I talked about Drew Lock. He's on the road at the Raiders. They are also not the best against the pass. So that's another good matchup. He's looking pretty good. Matt Stafford, you have to check his concussion, and Roethlisberger with the COVID. But Carson Wentz, if he's out there, he's got a great matchup against the Lions. So last time he played the Giants, he threw for 357 yards and a touchdown. So and then you got Tua and Jake Luton, Nick Mullins, all pretty good. You can find somebody, out there.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, there's so many options. I mean, even Alex Smith, a guy that gets inserted into that offense. He's got that rookie. He's got that veteran presence. I like him. Phillip Rivers out there. Kirk Cousins. Not this week, but the rest of the season. I don't like Kirk Cousins at all against the Bears.
He's terrible against the Bears. But I mean, you got to figure that they're just going to pound Dalvin Cook at the Bears all game long. I mean, last week Dalvin Cook had average 9.6 yards per carry. That's not going to happen against the Bears. They shut down Derrick Henry.
Next year's number one overall pick.
Yeah, you got to think.
Dalvin Cook. Yeah, unless he blows out his knee. Hopefully not.
Before the end of the season.
Yeah,
I mean, but Christian McCaffrey will still be up there at the top. You see what he can do when he's healthy. He's a guaranteed 25, 30 points per game. But so's Dalvin. So's Devontae Adams. Those three guys are going to be up near the top again.
No doubt about it. And that's a great segue. Let's lead into running backs too. John waivers. Guy we were just talking about, available in a lot of leagues, highly targeted in the passing game for the Washington football team too. Who are we talking about?
J.D. McKissick. I don't know if he's still out there, but if he is.
A lot of leagues he is.
Is he? I don't get it because, I mean, he's this year's James White and past Chris Thompson, Danny Woodhead type players,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, McKissick is a flex every week. I highly believe that. And, of course, you got to talk about Duke Johnson, Tooch. We talked about David Johnson in concussion protocol, likely to miss. I know he's questionable, but I think he's likely to miss because he's in rough shape. Duke Johnson could be a great start, and he's a guy you can plug in with a lot of confidence because he's got that experience in this league.
Yeah, it's a good pickup. He is a great receiver out of the backfield. He's a decent rushing back too. So, he's kind of like Mike Davis. Good receiver, good runner. Not flashy, but Duke Johnson's like a Gio Bernard. Good fill-in.
And we've got a bunch of other fill-in guys that are here on waivers. Yeah. I mean, none of these guys are going to be league winners for you, but you got Kalen Ballage, who you could pick up if you need help.
Yeah.
Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel.
Yep.
Ballage did look good. The eight-headed monster of whatever the backfield is in New England. I don't really feel like figuring it out next week. I want to try to stay away.
Here, Wayne Gallman looks pretty good, and Zach Moss, who's had 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks, is getting the goal line carries. Those are 2 guys. Now here, if David Montgomery's out, his backup Ryan Nall, he was the number 14 overall running back scorer this week against the Vikings. He could have a decent game. He targeted 4 times and caught 4 balls. So I imagine that could double. As Bears fall behind and have to throw the ball. So,
Tooch, I'm in one really deep 16-man league, and I dropped Ryan Nall the week that he finally did something.
That's the way it goes.
Be kidding me.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I mean, Wayne Gallman,
of course,
not,
you know,
a
you
bad
got
pickup. No, not a bad pickup.
Yeah. Gallman's not bad. Tony Pollard,
Yeah.
if for whatever reason he's still available, could be a big part of the Cowboys offense the rest of the year.
Mhm.
Because at what point do they shut down Zeke and say, you know what, we're going to preserve you? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I like Tony Pollard. They're getting him more involved.
Yep.
And of course, you got to talk a little bit about Jerick McKinnon. He could be a quality ad as well that could help you down the stretch.
I agree. If someone dropped McKinnon, I love him as a stash. You know, of course, Raheem Mostert's coming back, so we'll see. The guys I like out of this list are obviously McKissick, Johnson, Wayne Gallman, Zach Moss. I think those are probably the top four.
Yeah,
you know,
I would agree.
And then
get those claims in tonight, people.
Get them in tonight. Wide receivers, there's some good. I'd say some of the top names out there. Of course, Jacoby Myers, who's looking great. Like I said, 14 targets, 12 catches. Curtis Samuel come up big the past 2 weeks. And then Brashad Perriman, who's back healthy now. He had 2 touchdowns. And then other guys like a Jerry. I'd probably put Jerry Jeudy up there too, Joe. And then again,
I like Jeudy.
Nelson Aguilar, who had a couple big games, then had a goose egg, had another good game. You know, and then what about this Richie James kid, Joe?
Out of nowhere, Tooch, out of left field.
Yeah, it might be a good
he could be a quality ad.
Yeah, a guy looked like a superstar. You know, with Kendrick Bourne now, Bourne's in the COVID protocol. Devo's got the hamstring. I don't mind that pickup. Then of course we got Preston Williams. We'll see. There's some names out there, and then Alshon Jeffrey, Joe. If Jeffrey's back and he's finally healthy,
he's the number one guy.
You know how Wentz loves throwing it to him. So we'll see.
He just chucks it up and lets Alshon go get it.
Yep.
And let's go into tight end waivers, Tooch. We've been talking for weeks about Dallas Goedert. If for whatever reason Dallas is still available, you're going to go pick him up.
Yeah.
Noah Fant, again, quality options. Those two guys, if they're available, grab them right away. Then we kind of fall off a little bit, but there are some guys that can help you. You got Eric Ebron out there,
who's got a great matchup this week against the Bengals, worst against the tight end.
And he might not have his own quarterback in Big Ben. So especially if he's out, look for the backup to use him as a safety blanket. So I love Ebron this week in that capacity. Trey Burton, they've been using him a lot out of that offense. He's taken direct snaps. He scored a touchdown last week. I don't know if he scored this week, but either way, he's been getting more involved. He's the tight end you want to own in Indy. Harrison Bryant has looked good at tight end for the Browns alongside David Njoku. Either or of those guys could score this week, Tooch. That could be interesting.
Austin Hooper
we talked about coming off of the appendectomy.
This is next guy is a sneaky pickup, Joe, because it should be a high-scoring game. Rams, Seahawks, and Everett's basically a big wide receiver. So I think that might be a sneaky pick. That's a super sleeper.
Yeah, and if you guys need a tight end, Gerald Everett, very sneaky, a guy that's available in probably 90% of leagues, I would imagine, could definitely help you out as he's the best tight end in LA, at least I think. And of course, a guy that's super sneaky, a guy you're going to hear from me about later, Jordan Reed this week, guys. I love Jordan Reed this week. I'll tell you why in a little bit, but he's a guy on waivers that's going to help you a lot this week. If you're in a pinch to get a win, he could be a real sneaky play. And then Tooch, Ross Dwelly. Ross Dwelly is looking good as well.
Right, yeah, it could be a good pickup too. I'm with you, though. I think it's going to be Jordan Reed. I don't think he was ready to go last week. He only played a little bit. So Dwelly had to take the bulk of snaps and stuff. So, yeah. So we got a question about Kalen Ballage. I thought he looked really good. He looked fast. He escaped the Jets, like Steve said. Once someone gets away from Adam Gase, the arrow pointing up, sky's the limit. So, yeah, I mean, of course you have Austin Eckler coming back. Maybe in a week you could get one more week out of Kalen Ballage. So maybe you don't have to put in a waiver claim for him. Maybe you just wait and then pick him up just as a free agent where there's no waiver designation that affects your waiver order.
Oh, we got a very important question in the chat.
Am I playing Gonzo?
I don't know if you're playing him.
Well, I mean, there's if it's Barroom League, it's a good chance I'm losing. I lost Kittle and McCaffrey for most of the year, so I'm 3-6. But I can't count how many times. The first week I played Gonzo, and he was the high scorer. I played Aldo one week; he was the high scorer. I played Gaines one week; he was the high scorer. So I got to stop playing the high scorer of the week. Then I probably have a lot better record. But that's the way it is. There's been years where I played the high scorer a lot of weeks, and that you can't do anything about it.
It's just bad luck. It is what it is. But,
all three guys, Joe, this week I played had Aaron Rodgers, and some of them had Devontae Adams. So I had a couple of those games I didn't have a chance. So
yes, sir. And let's dive in before we get to our real quick defenses you can pick up to help you this week. The Eagles could help
against the Giants.
Dolphins. Yeah, the Dolphins could help as well.
Right. The Dolphins are playing the Chargers at home against the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the Saints.
Of course, the Saints are going against the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff right there. And then, of course, the Washington football team, kind of a sneaky play this week, too, John. Defense.
They're at the Lions.
They're at the Lions. That could be good for
no Matt Stafford.
Yeah, that could be very good. And then the Vikings, Tooch, playing the Bears, who have the worst offense possibly in the history of football.
They're not gonna score in the third quarter, so you've got that one. So
maybe this week they finally score.
You got Packers defense against the Jaguars, home against the Jaguars.
That's right.
So you can pick up if you're streaming defenses. Those are 5 good options, 6 good options.
That's right. And Tooch, now it's time for the fantasy gold. We're going to tell you about the games this week.
Yeah,
they're going to bring you all the fantasy points. Fantasy gold games. Jaguars at Packers, Tooch. There's going to be a lot of points scored in this one, and probably not a whole lot of defense.
I love it. Get your Packers in there, man. Your players. Devontae Adams could have 50 points this week. Looking for Aaron Jones. He kind of didn't have a bad week in part-time duty. And then Packers can't stop the run at all. So James Robinson, I imagine they're going to feed James Robinson in this game. Then DJ Chark, he had exploded last week. He complained about Minshew not getting him the ball, and Jake Luton comes in and lights him up.
Yes, sir. And how about the next game on this list, Tooch? Why don't you walk us through this one?
Yeah, wherever the Texans go, they're it's usually a high scoring game. They're at the Browns. I think this has a chance to have some good points all the way around, Joe. The Browns might be getting Nick Chubb back, so they'll have that facet of their offense back. Yes, they don't have Odell Beckham Jr., but they got Austin Hooper back. And then, you still have Jarvis Landry. And then you got Rashard Higgins and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, lots of good options there. Lots of fantasy points. And Tooch, the Buccaneers at Panthers.
Right.
People are worried about the Buccaneers. They're ready to hit the panic button. But these teams are going to rebound. They're going to come back just fine. And there's not really a better team you can go against than the Panthers because that secondary hit or miss, and I imagine they're going to go after them right at the jugular. Probably score a lot of fantasy points in this one.
After scoring hardly any fantasy points last week, I got to imagine they're going to be out for blood this week, ultra focused. Bruce Arians, has been, cracking the whip. Panthers gave the Chiefs all they could handle at Arrowhead. Panthers capable of putting up some points too. We have to check and see how Christian McCaffrey is this week, but they still have a lot of weapons. The Buccaneers have a lot of weapons. It all spells fantasy gold to me, Joe.
Yep, and the next one on this list, we don't need to say too much about it. Seahawks at Rams. I mean, the Seahawks can't stop anybody. The Rams are not as good as advertised on defense, and both offenses they're just high flying. So you're starting, whatever Seahawks and Rams that you can.
I agree. Now, the Rams are number 1 against the pass. So,
they can't stop the run though.
But they haven't played Russell Wilson, so and they can't stop the run. It's just I don't think Seahawks are going to have Russell Wilson will still be able to throw. I think the Rams have just been lucky in the schedule with who they faced. So. Well, look at that in the chat room. Case Keenum might be the Browns' starting quarterback this week if Baker's out, huh?
That would be interesting.
I think the Baker's got to test negative by Wednesday in order to play. So tomorrow, I think, right? Or is that how it works?
Yeah, I believe it's tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And then the Rams offense is going to kick ass. Of course it is.
Yep, exactly. Just like we said, man. I mean, you got to get your Rams in there. That's what I'm saying. A sneaky waiver wire pickup at tight end is Gerald Everett. He's like a big wide receiver. So Seahawks can't, I think you're going to see Jared Goff throw for 400 yards.
I think so too. And this next game, you might see Josh Allen throw for over 400 yards again, too, against the Cardinals, who can't stop anybody. But both of these offenses high-powered, both of these defenses not as advertised, Tooch.
No, the defense is not very good. Both quarterbacks could rush for 100 yards. Last week, Kyler Murray did rush for 100 yards.
Massive game.
I love this game for, quarterbacks, receivers, all of it. It's just fantasy gold.
Fantasy gold.
Get them in.
That's right. And get them in. Get that fantasy gold. A chug-a-luggin'. And Tooch, let's go to our starts and sits of the week. Now, we've already talked about the plus matchups,
Yeah, run through them real quick. No, or really fast.
Yeah, we'll run. We'll run through them real quick. Plus matchups at quarterback. I'll take QBs. Jared Goff against the Seahawks. Aaron Rodgers against the Jaguars. Baker Mayfield against the Texans if he plays.
Case Keenum.
Or just Case Keenum. Nick Foles against the Vikings. Yes, I know it's not a great one, but he's got a good matchup. And Tua Tagovailoa against the Chargers, Tooch. What about running back plus matchups?
Well, here you got the Washington running backs versus the Lions, the Jaguar running backs versus the Packers, Browns running backs versus the Texans, Broncos running backs versus the Raiders, and Packers running backs versus the Jaguars. Those are the plus matchups for running backs.
Yep, and then same thing, plus matchups at wide receivers, Tooch. The Rams receivers going against the Seahawks. Can't stop anybody. Bears wide receivers against the Vikings. They can't stop anybody. Maybe Nick Foles can throw it to them this week. We'll see what happens. Texans wide receivers going against the Browns. Other way around, Browns receivers going against the Texans. Texans off defense is horrendous. And then Colts wide receivers against the Titans, who have been really bad in their secondary, Tooch.
Yeah, I mean, you had a couple guys, 2 or 3 guys with the almost double-digit targets last week versus the Titans, Mooney, Miller, and Robinson. So, yeah, I like the Colts lineup. Think about picking up guys like Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal this week if you're for a wide receiver.
Yes, sir. And why don't
tight
you
end?
do the tight end? Yeah.
Pittsburgh tight ends versus the Bengals. That's why I like Eric Ebron this week. Packers tight ends versus the Jaguars. And then Cardinals tight ends versus the Bills. You saw Max Williams take a touchdown in for the Cardinals last week.
Helped absolutely no one.
Helped nobody. Lions tight ends versus Washington. TJ Hawkinson last week had a touchdown. Giants tight ends versus the Eagles. You saw Evan Engram have a big game. these are some good starts, pickups. Hawkinson, Ingram, whoever's playing at the Cardinals last week. It was Max Williams, Robert Tonyan, Joe. Perhaps coming back.
He's been a dud lately.
Yeah, this is a get-right game for him, though.
Absolutely. And Tooch, let's get to our starts and sits of the week.
Yep.
And a quarterback last week, Tooch. I had Matthew Stafford versus the Vikings, but, he got concussed and didn't have a great game. So that was a miss.
I had Drew Lock versus the Falcons. That's what I was saying. That was my start. I love that matchup, and he was a big hit.
Yeah, who are you going with this week as your start of the week?
Jared Goff versus the Seahawks.
There you go. I love that.
I just think he's going to light it up. That's my quarterback start of the week.
And a guy I think is going to tear it up is going to be Drew Brees against the 49ers. This is a guy that just ripped apart the Buccaneers defense, which I consider to be very good on Sunday. And the 49ers defense is just completely decimated by injury. I look for Drew Brees to have a really, really nice week.
I love it.
If you have him, you got to start him.
What did I say last week? The Saints are a second half team.
Always are.
Defense rounding out. Their offense is getting guys back. They're also rounding out so many weapons now. Emmanuel Sanders had a touchdown. They still have Kamara and Murray in the backfield. And then Michael Thomas and Jared Cook, big targets.
All their different tight ends. The different tight ends are getting involved too.
That's right.
Jared Cook, Josh Kelly.
Josh Hill, yep. And
Josh Hill.
Adam Troutman had a touchdown.
Yeah. So, Drew Brees, I love him this week. Tooch, last week at running back, we both swung and missed. I took Damian Harris against the Jets. It ended up being Rex Burkhead. And who'd you go with last week? You took JaMychal Hasty.
Yep, he had a good opportunity, didn't do anything, and Jerick McKinnon was the star. So I'll have to try not to pick those running backs by committee, Joe. But the Packers terrible against the run. It couldn't do anything. But the 49ers fell behind early, so Hasty was not a factor. So.
Yep, and this week as my start of the week at running back, I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift against the Washington football team. This is a guy that's getting more and more touches each week, and he's a threat out of that backfield. So especially if you're in a PPR league, I really like DeAndre Swift this week. I think he's going to get at least 3 to 7 catches out of that backfield.
Right, and I'm going against you head-to-head there with Antonio Gibson, who had had a touchdown last week. I wish they'd give him a little more. I mean, he got involved. He had 3 catches. He carried the ball 6 times. One was a goal line carry. So, I mean, I wish they would get him involved a little bit more. But this week against the Lions, he's got a good chance to do some damage.
Absolutely, brother. And then we both hit it out of the park last week with our wide receiver starts of the week. Last week, I took Christian Kirk against the Dolphins. Again, the kid just keeps doing it every single week. Very fast, on top of the world. And then you hit it out of the park as well, Tooch, with your guy Marvin Jones.
Right, he's kind of a small hit. He had a touchdown. He didn't really explode like we thought he did, but good enough to get you some points. He was a high-end wide receiver 3. Finished with 13.3 fantasy points, which is okay. That's why it's a small. But Christian Kirk, man, how long have I been telling people to pick this guy up on the waivers? I know now he's gone. But
he's gone.
8 targets, 5 catches, 123 yards at a touchdown. Not bad. It says he's 60% owned, which I find surprising still. So, boy.
Yeah, if he's available in your league, pick him up. And Tooch, who do you got this week for your wide receiver start of the week?
Well, I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry, Joe. This is kind of without Odell Beckham Jr. and great matchup against the Texans. I think it's rising from the grave here, Joe, for Jarvis.
I love that, brother. And then I'm going to go with Mike Williams against the Dolphins. The Chargers have been good. Justin Herbert's been good. He finds Mike Williams. He just finds a way to get him the ball. I like Mike Williams to have a good day against that Dolphins secondary.
I love it. And Mike Williams last week finishes number 36 overall receiver, 5 catches, 7 targets, 81 yards. Didn't find the end zone, though, but I had a 16.2 yards per reception average, which is pretty damn good.
Absolutely, man. You cannot beat that. It's doing pretty good for a guy that a lot of people forgot about going into the season.
Right.
And Tooch, what about tight ends? Last week, I took Logan Thomas against the Giants. He didn't do jack. And you took Noah Fant against the Falcons, and he also didn't do much.
Yeah, surprising. Fant, didn't find. If Fant would have found the end zone, he came close. I think he was knocked out like the 3-yard line on a pass. That would have been, that would have made the week. Would have put him up in the top 8 tight ends. Instead, he finished as number 18. But Logan Thomas, who's been heavily targeted, just had 6 targets, only 3 catches. But it was a good matchup. They didn't get in the end zone. For tight ends to finish, they're not getting a lot of targets unless they're Travis Kelce,
Yeah.
So, or Darren Waller. Those are the top 2. The top 2 scorers this week were Jimmy Graham. He had 6 catches. He was number 2. Travis Kelce, number 1. Jimmy Graham, again, coming up big. Evan Engram finished 3rd. And a guy that we probably should have mentioned in the waivers is Irv Smith, who that's a sneaky tight end pickup this week against the Bears, as Jonnu Smith had a touchdown on a tight end in the flat play. Irv Smith, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, finished as the number 4 overall tight end.
Yeah, Irv Smith.
I like Irv Smith, man. I said a couple weeks back, I think he might have a big second half. So
he's going to be a big name in fantasy next year for sure.
They don't need to throw the ball though, Joe, with Dalvin Cook. That's the thing. That's what's holding those guys back. Thielen, Smith, and Justin Jefferson the past couple weeks. I mean, Dalvin Cook, all they need to do is just keep feeding the ball to Dalvin Cook because no one can stop him. So if people gear up to stop Cook, you'll see Smith and Jefferson and Thielen, pick their games back up. But until someone stops Dalvin Cook, I think the Bears, who did a great job against Derrick Henry, they're gonna gear up and they're gonna force Kirk Cousins to throw, and then they'll try and sack Kirk Cousins with that pass rush.
I love it, man. And who's your start of the week this week at tight end, Tooch?
I am going with T.J. Hawkinson versus the Washington football team. He's been the main red zone target, with Galladay gone. Galladay has a chance to come back, though. I still like the matchup of Hawkinson versus the football team. The football team's not that good versus the tight end. So I think I'll take Hawkinson this week, Joe. How about you?
I love that. I'm going to go with Jordan Reed against the Saints. Jordan Reed is a guy that, he's a big target. He looks like he's going to be healthy this week. He's a safety blanket, and that team needs a safety blanket. And he's been just getting targeted a lot. And the Saints have a hard time against the tight end. I like Jordan Reed to finish inside the top 5 this week as a sneaky tight end play.
I like it filling in for George Kittle. So Jordan Reed going to be a hot pickup.
I agree. I think he'll be one of the top tight end pickups this week.
Yep.
This tight end is a wasteland. It really is.
Man, that's why it's so important to grab Travis Kelce in one of those first 2 rounds, because you're guaranteed, an advantage at one of the starting positions. Whether it's been Kelce and it's been Darren Waller, and other than that, it's kind of been, just like you said, a wasteland.
Indeed. And our sit of the week last week, Tooch, we both hit it. I said sit Ryan Tannehill versus the Bears. He did not have a great game. I mean, obviously there was a couple of broken coverages where they got that long touchdown to Jonnu Smith, but outside of that, I mean, Tannehill had a rough day at the office.
That's right. And I had Lamar Jackson versus the Colts. Also a hit. He finished 18. Tannehill finished 21 overall. And Joe, going back to tight ends, the top tight ends on the season in fantasy points per game or this is just points per game average, are
Travis Kelce,
George Kittle. Of course, that's just fantasy points per game. He hasn't been, healthy. Darren Waller and T.J. Hawkinson.
Wow.
Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, Hayden Hurst, and Jimmy Graham. Those are your top. Jared Cook. Those are like your top tight ends there. So
The number 3 tight end off the board, not on that list, Mark Andrews, Tooch.
Yep.
Is he a drop at this point?
Man, he's got 85.7 fantasy points on the year, which is good for 8th overall. Man, I don't know. I'd like to look at their schedule. I'm not sure it eases up though much. Do they have a good schedule the rest of the season? Let's see.
Who are we talking about?
Mark Andrews.
Oh,
and
the
the
Ravens
Ravens.
schedule.
Yeah.
Here, I got it right in front of me, Tooch. So,
Yep.
All right, the rest of the year. You ready for this?
Patriots, the Titans. The Titans a pretty good matchup. The Cowboys, Steelers is a bad matchup. The Browns is a good matchup. Jaguars is a good matchup. Bengals is a good matchup. They have a great schedule with the exception of 2 games, Joe. They're playing the Patriots and the Steelers. So I would hold on to him.
He's a guy you stash for the playoffs for that schedule.
At this point in Mark Andrews' career or season, I think that he's a streaming tight end right now with good matchups the rest of the season. So I'm not gonna give up on him just yet.
Yeah. And my sit of the week this week, too, is I'm gonna go with Kirk Cousins against the Bears because the Bears are stopping everybody and Kirk is notoriously bad against the Bears. Who are you going with for your sit?
I'm gonna go Ryan Tannehill versus the Colts, who are great against just a great defense overall, let's just say.
Their defense is dynamite, man.
Yep.
Let's go into super sleeper territory, Tooch. Well, last week, I took Tyler Ervin against the 49ers. He was backing up Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
For a sleeper, he hit. 11 points in fantasy is pretty good. He was highly involved in the second half of that game once it was out of hand. So I'd say that was a hit.
Yep. Like I said, there are only 2 guys that really did a ton of damage this week. Dalvin Cook and who was the other guy? But other than that, if you got in the end zone, that was it. You were in the top. You were in the top 12 for running backs. Yeah. And I had John Brown.
That was a hit.
Bills. That was also a hit. Yep.
So let's go into super sleeper territory for this week, Tooch. Who's your super sleeper this week?
I've got Darnell Mooney versus the Vikings, who had 10 targets last week. I like the matchup against those corners. Actually, 11 targets. So I with Allen Robinson, Bears cutting off contract talks with Allen Robinson. Maybe Robinson doesn't want to get hurt this rest of the season. I don't blame him because if he's going to be elsewhere and he's going to want a new contract, he's not getting a good contract with any kind of injury tag following him off.
You're right.
So Darnell Mooney is under contract with the Bears, so I like Mooney to pick up the slack there. 11 targets last week. I don't think the Vikings can cover him. It's just up to Foles and that offensive line to hold, and Foles to get him the ball.
Yeah, they'll probably have a few holding penalties in that game too. So
I'm sure there'll be plenty of penalties.
Oh yeah, my super sleeper for this week, Tooch. I'm going to go Duke Johnson versus the Browns. Even if David Johnson plays, he's got concussion protocol. I don't think he's going to play, but even if he does, I like him to have an expanded role. And he catches balls out of the backfield. He does it all. So Duke Johnson's a guy that's available in the majority of leagues that you can plug and play. And I think he's going to get you 15 to 20 points easily.
I love it, Joe. Yep, man. I'm sure he's one of your top pickups for waivers this week.
Absolutely. David Duke Johnson. There's too many Johnsons on the
too many D Johnsons. Right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, D Johnson.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, so the hot pickups, we went through them. Jared Goff, Duke Johnson, J.D. McKissick, Jacoby Myers, Brashad Perriman. If you're looking for a number 1 wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, Drew Lock, Eric Ebron,
Jordan Reed.
These are the hot pickups this week. Alshon
So
Jeffrey.
get them. They can help you win.
The running
hopefully
back.
help you.
Sneaky running backs are, Wayne Gallman, Zach Moss, Ryan Nall, and Bryce Love. These guys are coming back. I think you're going to wait. You might see Bryce Love take over that number one spot in Washington.
You easily could. We're going to have to wait and see. But we did it all, Tooch. We covered the crazy amount of injuries. We covered waivers. We covered starts and sits, fantasy gold games. We answered a lot of questions from people in the chat. And this is the part of the show where I'm going to thank everybody that was in the chat all night. Huge thanks to JB Sports for hanging out with us, as well as Ron Rupnow. JB Sports was in there a lot. Steve who's been hanging out with us. Joe O'Donnell, Michigan, the legend, 44, Mike I-44.
Yep, I saw a guy, David Earls, there too. Hello, Dave.
David Earls, yep. David Earls, thank you. Lolly's Locks, thank you for tuning in. Joe O'Donnell. And then last but not least, Chris Gonzalez. Gonzo, that guy, Mr. Magpie, and everyone else who was able to join us.
Some of these names today.
Hey, man, we got a lot of interesting folks hanging out with us. We always appreciate you tuning in.
Yep.
We're always going to ask your questions. We're going to answer your questions all season long. Make sure during the season you hit us up on Twitter at FFBGoon. You can reach out to myself and John on Twitter. You can hit me at Joe Mandel. You can hit John Santucci at Santucci_John.
Or search for Tooch, which is
search for
handle
Tooch
name
on Twitter.
Yep.
And then you can head over to fantasyfootballgoon.com every Wednesday evening and get the rankings for the week by position that I do every single week. They're there for you, and they're, if you can't ask a question, the answer is right there for you. But we do answer questions all year long, no matter how you find us. Whether it's here, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, the Barroom Network. Same thing, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And we just appreciate you guys. Head over to bearsbarroom.com. You can check out our swag shop. You can buy Fantasy Football Goon t-shirt with this really nice logo right there. Right, you can put it on any color t-shirt you want. Help support us. You can buy a Barroom Network t-shirt.
Oh man,
I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I need some swag. My next check. I always say that, but my last check was gone pretty quick. I had some year, on bills that you have to pay once a year come up last week. Just and the rent, of course, for me. But.
Well, of course, and it would be remiss if I didn't get to thank my partner in crime over here, John Santucci, the Tooch. I had a big storm in my area where I was, there was no internet for a while. There was electricity flickering on and off, and
survived the tornado.
Well, there wasn't a tornado, but it sure felt like it.
Right. I thought if it was raining, you're down in your basement. It was like that with the one movie with the alligator in the basement recently. I forget the.
Crawl.
I think it's called Crawl.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I was picturing you down in the basement with the gators coming in.
Well, that'd be something. I hope I don't have any gators in my basement, but I guess we'll find out with due time. And of course, we have to thank the Godfather himself, Aldo Gandia, the head of the Barroom Radio Network or the Barroom Network. We really appreciate you, Aldo.
Yep.
I'm gonna get to talk to him a little bit tomorrow afternoon. It's been a little while. Aldo's a very busy man with all these great shows that we talked about on the network. You got Stacey King
tomorrow.
What's that?
The Mike North Advantage tomorrow. You get those Vegas picks.
So many good shows. I mean, I can't even name them all. Head over to bearsbarroom.com. You can see all the different shows. You can see when they're going to be out. You can subscribe to the podcast stream for Bears Barroom anywhere you can find podcasts. Just look up Bears Barroom or Barroom Network on anywhere podcasts are found. Give us a subscribe. Give us a like. Head over to bearsbarroom.com. Buy some swag. Support us, whether it's a Fantasy Football Goon shirt, Bears Barroom, Barfly Tailgate, any of the shows you listen to on the network. You can find some swag. and help support us to keep doing what we're doing. So we really, 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 really appreciate you guys for tuning in.
Mhm.
It has been a lot of fun talking fantasy. We went really long tonight.
Don't forget Sunday.
Don't forget, we're live every single Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Central. Before injuries come out, we're talking inactives, all that jazz. We're answering questions. We're there every single week. So make sure you join us every Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. And make sure you join us that Sunday and then also next Tuesday. We have a very special announcement for a very special guest that's going to be joining us. We're going to tease you with it. We're going to talk about it next week. We have a big guest joining the show right around Thanksgiving. I'm gonna keep my lips sealed until then. I'm gonna make this guy be quiet, but stay tuned. We have a huge guest joining us. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But until then, good luck in your matchups this week. May the fantasy gods be ever in your favor, and go kick some ass and win this victory. So we'll see you guys on Sunday, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.